Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the February 25, 2019 regular meeting of the DeKalb City Council. Prior to calling to the meeting to order tonight and having our roll call, I would like to indicate to anyone who would like to speak to any item on the agenda or any item not on the agenda for that matter, to please fill out a speaker request form. They're in the back of the room in the foyer there, and we will get you on at the appropriate time. For those of you who follow the activities of the City Council, you will know that tonight we have second reading on a ordinance which would impact public participation. In the past, we simply said if you had any item that you wanted to speak to not on the agenda, you could go from the beginning and speak early on. If you wanted to speak to an item that was on the agenda, you really had to wait until that item on the agenda. What our City Council has debated and may pass tonight is the ability for any of the audience to have the option of taking their 3 minutes and speaking right up front under public participation, or waiting until the item comes up on the agenda, at which time you're more than welcome to speak. I think that'll work out very, very well, and we're going to give that sort of a test run tonight. And I will try to bring you up to speed on where we are as it relates to public participation. Seeing also, I'll have to take a look at, see what the speaker request forms so indicate. I'd like to ask Lynn Fazekas, our city clerk, to call the roll, please.
Jacobson. Finucane. Stupija.
Here.
Fagan.
Here.
Noreko. Verbic.
Here.
Favor.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
5 present.
For the record, Kate Noriko is in Rochester, New York. She could not get a plane back because of the windy conditions, and so she called me and indicated she would not be able to be with us tonight unless she gets a real fast flight, and she may show up at the tail end of the meeting. Who knows? Bill Finucane has also indicated to me that he will be about an hour late tonight, so Bill will be here. And Alderman Jacobson, we expect him to be here. He has indicated nothing to the contrary. Prior to our opening and our Pledge of Allegiance tonight, a few comments I think might be in order. This has been a very emotional time for those of us in the city of DeKalb, the city of Aurora, and at Northern Illinois University. The recent mass shooting at the Henry Pratt Company was a tragedy resulting in the loss of life for 6 people. In reaching out to Mayor Richard Irvin of Aurora, I could only pass on this city's condolences for what his community now has to endure. During the hours following the incident, we communicated with many officials in Sheridan, in Oswego, in Yorkville, and in Elgin. All of those communities shared the loss of human life that day. Obviously, it was extremely painful to share our sorrow with our campus family at NIU. We remember Trevor Weiner and Clay Parks, fellow Huskies to so many of us. Their deaths came on the heels of the 11th anniversary of the Valentine's Day shooting at NIU's Cole Hall. Yes, we grieve. We will never forget the anguish of those days. And yet we must move forward together. Forward. Together forward. And now, in memory of those who have lost their lives, may we have a moment of silence. Thank you. I'd like to ask our 3rd Ward Alderman, Joyce DePedja, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Joyce. Okay, the first item on the agenda for tonight is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Stupedja.
Second.
Second by Alderman Fagan. Any discussion? Roll call.
Stupedja,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
5-0.
Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda is approved. Hello, David. Okay, now we have item D, public participation. And this is where traditionally we have asked any individuals who would like to speak to the council on any item not on the agenda to come and speak. However, we are proposing a change in giving those who may not want to wait around for an entire meeting to speak early on in the meeting. I have before me only 5 individuals who have indicated an intent to speak to the item. 4 of those folks would like to speak on the Egyptian theater item, and the other speaker has indicated that he would like to speak to Chapter 2, which is the City Council agenda items. Do any of those folks from the Egyptian theater wish to speak to the public under public participation at this time? If not, thank you. We will hold off and entertain your comments during that agenda item. And Steve, I take it the same is true on the Chapter 2? Yes. Thank you. Okay, we have no other speakers that have filled out a speaker request form. So tonight I'd like to move forward to item E on your agenda, presentations. Proudly, DeKalb. We have a recognition of fire and police personnel, and I know Bill, our city manager, Bill Nicholas, and our fire chief, Jeff McMaster, will tandem on this presentation.
Right. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to very briefly report on what I think is a quintessential Proudly DeKalb moment, the saving of a life. And in that action, we want to honor tonight a NIU police officer, Dan Leifker, and quite a number of our firefighter, paramedics, and others with our DeKalb Fire Department. So the event occurred on February 9th. It was at NIU, and Dan Leifker, the officer that I mentioned earlier, was on duty, and he noticed there was a woman who was down. She was unresponsive. She was not breathing and did not have a pulse, and he immediately started providing CPR. Also radioed, he received some help from paramedics of DeKalb Medic 5, and as these gentlemen worked on the victim, they moved this person as fast as they could while providing CPR to the ambulance. Once in the ambulance, they continued CPR. All of these personnel together were able, after doing some other things, to ultimately providing a shockable rhythm on the patient, and continue CPR. After about 2 minutes of the work in the ambulance, they regain spontaneous circulation. That means that the patient had a pulse, blood pressure, and could breathe, but remained unconscious. They continued providing this life-sustaining support until they got to Northwestern Medicine Kishwaukee Hospital. I'm happy to say the patient was alive when she arrived and is still alive and doing much better and recovering, thanks to the very prompt and very professional action of these individuals. So the DeKalb Fire Department is very proud to present all of these first responders with the department's letter of commendation for resuscitation, and I'd like to join Chief McMaster in providing these letters to these individuals, and we'll call them out as I get up there. Chief? As I call your name, will you please come up and receive your letter, please? Officer Leifer. Firefighter Paramedic Conley. Firefighter Paramedic Krupa. Firefighter Paramedic Thornton. Lieutenant Andrews. Brian. Oh, there's Brian. Who was just on a call. Please give them all.
Thank you for all you guys did.
Proud of you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Proud of you. You guys are special.
Thank you for all. Thank you. Appreciate it.
An event that ended so well. Thank you to these firefighter, paramedics, and police officers. Thanks again, gentlemen. Okay, our next presentation is from the DeKalb Municipal Band, and if its director, Kirk Lundbeck, would come forward to the podium, he's going to provide a summary of what's happening with the band. Hello, Kirk.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm honored to begin my 8th year as the director of the DeKalb Municipal Band and my 9th year of conducting the band. I took over for Dee when he passed away in 2011 and conducted that year for him, except for 4 pieces on that on the final concert of that season. Last year was an interesting year for us. We had 2 rainouts in a row, which this is my 42nd year in the band, and I can't remember having 2 rainouts in a row, but we did do that. And then following that, the 4th of July was shortened. So we had a tough beginning to our season, but after that, we smooth as silk the rest of the year. So it was a very exciting season. We expect to have a great season this year. This will be our 165th continuous season, which makes us the oldest continuously performing municipal band in the country. I did provide each of you, a copy of my director's report. So rather than to waste these people's time, because I'm sure the agenda is not short, I would like to open it up to any questions that you may have about what my report, and that's open now.
Kirk, I know it was in the report. Give us just a capsule preview of what some of the new things you're going to be doing this summer.
Well, this summer we always have themed concerts. We always do our Star Spangled Spectacular on the 4th of July. We also have a new themed program that we started last year, which is a musical trip around the world, where I pick pieces from different parts of the world, and we take the audience on a journey throughout the world, and we play music of, for example, from Japan or from China or from South America or Africa. And so that's another one of our highlights. Each year at the end of July, we also do a children's program. It's specifically for all the children, not just the young ones, but we're all children at heart. But we feature music that they may have seen on Ray Rayner when they were a kid, or music from Looney Tunes and that kind of thing. So we try to get the younger generation more involved with the band, play stuff from The Incredibles, for example. I've ordered some new music this year that we will feature, some of the newer stuff like from the Black Panther, which just won a bunch of Academy Awards last night. And also we've got I've ordered this, I don't know if we'll perform it yet or not because I have to look at it, but it's a bunch of stuff that Lady Gaga has done. So you'll be seeing a lot of new stuff in the band. We will not turn into a rock and roll group, I will tell you that right now. We will stay a traditional municipal band and perform a lot of Sousa marches, which is our mainstay. We expect to have our audiences average between 700 and 1,000 every concert now. Back when I was playing in the band, it was about 500. We have grown the band, and that helps through our multimedia things that we do and our social media. We've got a great website. We've got a great Facebook page, and if you've ever gone to our YouTube channel, we get all kinds of hits on that. So if you never need the municipal band, or if you ever need the municipal band outside of the months of June, July, and August, you can hit us up on YouTube anytime.
Last summer, I met the mayor of a small community in California, and it just so happened his daughter, I can't remember his name, lived in Sycamore, and he said, "I can't believe it. This is just an incredible sounding band." So, and Kirk, before you leave, tell us what kind of salary you expect to draw and what kind of salary you drew last year.
I drew absolutely no money last year. With the budget cuts, I thought it would be wise to keep the integrity of the band the same. It was my goal when I took over the band. I told Dee, I told the city, and I told the council that it was that I would keep the integrity of the band and make it thrive. The best way for me to do that after the $10,000 budget cut was to relinquish my salary altogether, which was $9,000 a year. I did relinquish it. We met our budget because of it, and we would have exceeded our budget by about $150 if we wouldn't have had those two rainouts.
Well, we appreciate your willingness to do that. And it was no secret to anybody, again, following our council meetings, the importance that this council places on the DeKalb Municipal Band. Having said that, you had a budget cut, but we had to cut a lot of things, as you know. And but I do appreciate your report, your candor tonight. I really appreciate all you do each and every concert out there. Are there any other comments from anyone? If not, Kirk Lundbeck and the DeKalb Municipal Band, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving forward, there are no appointments this evening. We do have a consent agenda, and for those of you who, again, follow meetings, you know that consent agendas are usually enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on the items that I will read unless requested by a council member, in which event we will pull it off the consent agenda. The consent agenda items for this evening are as follows. Number 1, minutes of the regular city council meeting of February 11, 2019. Number 2, accounts payable and payroll through February 25, 2019 in the amount of $7,365,181.26. Number 3, investment and bank balance summary through December 2018. Number 4, year-to-date revenues and expenditures for the general fund and water fund through December 2018. And number 5, amendment to the 2019 schedule of meetings. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved by Alderman Verbeek, seconded by Alderman Favor. Any discussion? Roll call.
Fagan.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Stupija. Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
6 aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. There are no public hearings during our city council meeting tonight, so we'll move on to item I under considerations. Considerations are basically items that we may want to have further discussion on. There's no specific vote. I think in this case, our city manager wants some consensus from this city council, so if we may want to move forward with an ordinance or a resolution. The first consideration is establishing a special events budget in the amount of $10,000 for FY 2019. No one has expressed an interest to speak to that item, so I'll allow City Manager Nicholas to speak to it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
And Alderman Verbeek suggested about a week ago, or several weeks ago now, the possibility of setting aside some amount that could be used at the council's discretion for local groups, our city residents and businesses who might want to sponsor a first time or a new type of event. These things happen. We're trying to be open and creative in our community, particularly in our downtown. And so what I was looking for is a little more direction. I've suggested here $10,000, and I've also suggested that we could come back with a budget amendment that would put this $10,000 in the legislative budget, so it would be at the council's discretion. Now, obviously, there would be conversation about it, and people would have to, in some fashion, apply for this. We're very good at setting up regulations at the staff end of things, so we can easily come up with some kind of a form and a process. But I just want to make sure that you're all on board for establishing this kind of a feeder grant type program that would help with new events.
Okay, well, we'll see what the take on that is. City Manager Nicholas, any comments on that? Is there Alderman Favor?
Yeah, I'll give my support for that. You know, nothing against the other groups that we have working for us, but I do feel it's important that the city has its own specific maybe grant or special events budget that we can utilize specifically just for the city of DeKalb. And so I'm in support of this.
Thank you. Alderman Verbeek.
And coupled with that, thank you for consideration of this for all of council, but the notion of some type of city mayoral appointed committee or commission to gather and discuss what would be or could be priorities for this $10,000 grant, what would be ways that could be grown. We talked briefly about if there was to be an increase in the hotel motel tax revenue, so some successes, how could we reward the successes of that kind of effort? So thank you for your consideration, and I ask for your support.
Thank you. Alderman Fagan.
Taking this out of the budget, amending the budget, I agree with we wanted to do anything, we wouldn't have to amend a budget every council session. How would that be distributed if someone came to us? Would that be brought up to a vote of, or how would that be?
Well, there are two ways we could do it. We could set up a mayor-appointed commission, as Alderman Verbeek has suggested. We have a lot of commissions and committees right now. Or we could, in this pilot year, we could say, really, you're the commission, and you can, as you hear suggestions, you can funnel them my way. I can sit down with people, find out the details, and then bring it back to you and say, you have a budget of 10,000. Here's a request for 2,500 to do whatever. What do you think? And
would that be under like a consideration, or would that be an actual vote?
No,
or what would be,
we'd
how
bring
would that
it.
go about?
We'd bring it. You'd want to authorize the spending, so you'd have a vote, yea or nay, on it. And I'd set it up so it'd be pretty straightforward and simple. And we keep track of it, and then we'll see where we are at the end of the year. If there's more interest than there are dollars, and in our due diligence every year as we're putting together the budget, we can look at all the people that are involved in these grant programs and see if we've got something brewing and growing here.
Yeah, I would go forward for that consideration.
Okay. Any other thought on that? Alderman Jacobson.
I think my one concern here is that this doesn't, that there's something put in place, obviously, to measure the return on those dollars. I mean, obviously, we've talked many times over the years, especially when the discussion of additional and extraneous funding comes up when we're in a very difficult financial time, that several items have become sacred cows, and I want to make sure that this isn't used effectively to create new ones. While I appreciate the fact that we need some sort of budget, not only to promote but better portray all of DeKalb as a whole, and not just the downtown, which I think has several groups that are focusing on that effort, whether they be the business owners themselves, some of the building owners, some of the residents down there, and especially the chamber. Again, when we're looking to branch out beyond that, I want to make sure that we're creating events that are bringing back a return into the city, and that it's an investment in those events. It's not just taking money from one group that certainly needs it, whether it be a public service fund or the municipal band or any of our other public fund recipients. Being that we've docked them, this has to demonstrate that it's worth it and that it makes sense and that it matters to the community. Otherwise, the money should stay where it's been, supporting those groups that have already provided trusted returns on those investments. So again, I think there should be some methodology put in there to see, again, to vet the projects, to have some sort of board or commission grant those dollars so that it's not just a public free-for-all with 100 different applicants.
Right.
And of course, we can't support all with $10,000.
Right. Well, to Alderman Fagan's point, I think the fact that we are going to look at these individually and sort of give our stamp of approval or whatever, and to Alderman Verbeek's point, we may want to form that commission, that special events commission or committee or whatever, sooner as opposed to later. But I think this could be something that could evolve. So, yeah, Alderman Verbeek.
And to city manager's point, I hope we grow that need, that interest, that activity that people are looking for, so we can gather the ideas to make best use of that 10,000. I count on council for great ideas and for us to gather those from who we serve, but I think that a group that works together on, and has a focus together, building those measurable goals, as you mentioned, Alderman Jacobson, I think would be important.
Good. Okay, well, I think you got consensus there, Bill. I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
Number 2, consideration of the city manager's recommendation to amend various city license inspections. Again, no one from the audience has indicated a desire to speak to this. So again, I'd ask our city manager to speak to this item, please.
Thank you, Mayor. There's some considerable background here, and I will get to some highlights in just a minute. So I just want to set a larger context here. There was something made of the fact that I explained, and it was appropriately reported, that there is a consideration here about what it takes to provide the various services in the way of funding, and that is important. Another component is how these fit into the overall array of inspections that we do in buildings that might fall under the rubric of property maintenance. And so what's being proposed here is a change to the system that some members of this council are very familiar with, that it was an evolution. Initially in 2013 and 2014, it was conceived as a system that would actually make some money for the city. There would be registration fees charged, there would be inspection fees charged for commercial businesses in town. The council eventually determined back in 2014 that there would be no fees and no inspection charges, and that the fire department, rather than just the building department, or as it was known then, would pick up a lot of the commercial building inspections and life safety inspections. And that's the system we have now. So there are a number of elements to it, and I just want to walk down what I am recommending and why. First, the largest program, which has been known as CBI, or Commercial Building Inspection, and this was an annual inspection with several purposes. One was to get in and look at all the commercial businesses at least once a year. Why? Sometimes there are complaints in public complaints about the condition, the interior condition, and sometimes the exterior condition of commercial businesses. But there's another reason why this was conceived in the first place, and that was to provide the fire department an opportunity for what they call pre-planning, which is to say they would have an opportunity to see the layout, the floor plans of the buildings on any day and any time of the day they might have to run into to save a life, or to fight a fire, or take care of some other hazardous situation. And pre-plans are part of any best practice in the fire department. You want to know when the rigs are moving what you're likely to encounter. So what's proposed here is to adjust the CBI program so that we would continue to do pre-plans. We have done 846 of them to date since early 2015. There are about 77 business locations that still remain to be inspected. These pre-plans would be reviewed and updated on a 3-year cycle. We recognize that there are times when businesses change their layouts, sometimes they add space, sometimes they subtract space, and so forth. Now, a lot of that is permitted activity, and whenever there's a permit issue, then we would go in anyway and would understand what the changes are. There would still be annual registration of commercial buildings because we'd like to know who the contact persons are, not just in emergencies, but when there are some things that would serve their interest and ours as well. If the council supports these changes, then we would bring this back at probably the next council meeting with changes to Chapter 5 in the municipal code. That's where the CBI program is outlined. Then there's another group of inspections called fire and life safety inspections, and these have also been on an annual schedule. And they, what we're proposing here is that they would be moved to every other year starting this year. They pertain to restaurants, grocery stores, banquet halls, taverns and bars, pool halls, amusement centers. Excuse me just a minute. Bowling alleys, bounce houses, gaming areas, and small businesses, and so forth. Quite a wide variety. We have a very small number of people who are available to do this. Registration and licensing fees would remain on an annual recurring basis, again, to collect key contact information, but we would go to every other year. The repeal of the gas station licenses, we had added this back in 2015. Gas stations have a couple of potential hazards. One is the pumps, which are also inspected by the fire marshal's office, and then also the food, not the packaged food, but oftentimes there are roller hot dogs and fresh food that is provided in gas stations, and that is inspected once a year by others. Frankly, as we reviewed this, it seems to me that, and it seemed to our inspectors and our firefighters doing the inspections, that we could better use our time in other places doing inspection. Hotels and motels, that was picked up again in around 2015. What we're proposing here is to do it every other year starting next year. We'll finish the ones this year. The reason these are still on is not to check on bed bugs, but to check on the fire protection devices. Are the exits properly noted? Are there emergency lights? Are there paths of egress and all this? And because people go in here, strangers, to the motels and hotels, and they are there and they're going to be sleeping. And so it seems to me there are higher risks involved. So we collectively agreed that we ought to continue to do them, but do it on an every other year basis. Finally, no changes to rooming houses. Our rooming house licensing program has been very successful, and it seems to be essential that we continue to do them on an annual basis, again, because there's a lot of turnover. Again, strangers going into a new place to stay oftentimes because they are attending NIU, and there's a rotation or a turnover in these places, and you don't know oftentimes who's in the next floor, on the next floor or down the hall. So we thought it was important to continue those inspections as we have been. So in a very brief way, these are the general changes that we're hoping to do, and we'd like your support and also your review.
It's quite a laundry list. I'd like comments, please. Alderman Fagan.
If we do have any problem with any of these hotels, whatever, I mean, we can still call the people, call in our people.
Nothing changes here in the way of the complaint process.
Right.
Now and historically, if somebody, anybody, it doesn't have to be an official, it can be a guest, it can be a passerby. You see something that concerns you, you can call the building department, the fire department, and we'll note it, and if we need to respond, we will.
I'm in favor for this. Thank you.
Any other comments? Well, Bill, we charge you to hit the ground running, and you certainly have with proposals like this, and I appreciate that. Any further comments on this?
I do want to say, I said so in the background. I want to make a particular point of saying this. When the fire department took on the principal responsibility for a lot of these inspection programs, obviously that had some impact on the terms and conditions of the employment of many of our firefighters, paramedics, and command staff and so forth. And so we wrote certain provisions into the collective bargaining agreement. We have to, in a simultaneous fashion, work through this with our friends in Local 1236, and we are doing that. I think we are moving very well together in terms of the conversation. It was also important that we hear from the community and from the council so that we know whether we should proceed with some proposed changes in the collective bargaining agreement. We will bring back amendments to city code and possibly a side letter to the contract in the near future.
Good. But it appears you have consensus from this council.
Thank you.
Okay, now we move on to item J on your agenda. Resolutions. Number 1, Resolution 2019-042, authorizing an amendment to the Midwest Hangar Corporation hangar lease agreement. I'd entertain a motion to put this on the floor.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved by Alderman Stupedja, seconded by Alderman Favor. City Manager Bill Nicholas, speak to this item, please.
Thank you. Very briefly, Mayor and Council, we benefit by the interest of corporate businesses in our airport. And we have, over the years, invited these interests to think about constructing hangars on our property, and some have done so. Midwest Hangar Corporation has. They constructed a 6-unit hangar building. It's a very large structure, and they operate this rather like a condominium. They lease out or sublease individual units within the hangar to third parties. The initial lease was entered into in March 2005. Every 5 years, there's an opportunity to extend up to a total of 50 years. Things are working out very well. They would like to extend the agreement to a total of 65 years. And this is all good for us because if they lose that, then we lose those. The potential is to lose anywhere from 1 to 6 pilots and all that goes with it, the fuel sales and so forth. So we're happy that they're interested in us, and this will show them that we're interested in them.
Any discussion on Bill's recommendation? Roll call.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Stupidja.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
6 aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 2, Resolution 2019-043, authorizing the award of a bid to Performance Construction and Engineering, LLC, in the amount of $743,500 for 4,100 feet of water main replacement on Joanne Lane, Gulf View Place, and Islandwood Drive, with staff authority to approve change orders up to $769,522. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Favor, seconded by Alderman Verbeek. City Manager Nicholas, please.
This proposed project is consistent with the 2015 Water System Master Plan that a number of you have worked on. To date, we spent a little over $3 million on water capital improvements pursuant to this plan. This will be particularly welcome to those people living on Joanne Lane, Gulf View Place, and Islandwood Drive. We solicited bids. As you can see in your background, there was good interest. Quite a number of contractors bid on this particular project. The low bidder was Performance Construction and Engineering. As an alternate in the bid, we also asked all the bidders to let us know if there could be some savings if we use PVC piping for the laterals, and so each of the contractors also provided a potential savings for that. The low bidder came in with a potential savings of about $23,000. We looked at the low bid and also at the alternate. What we've decided to recommend to you is that we go with Performance Construction and Engineering, but that we not proceed with the substitution of the PVC for the traditional ductile iron and the copper services, because the savings does not seem to offset the more durability, the greater durability of the copper at this point. So,
Any discussion on this recommendation from Water and our City Manager? Roll call.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Stupidja.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
6 aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Number 3, Resolution 2019-044, authorizing an engineering services agreement with Fair Graham and Associates, LLC, for construction engineering of 4,100 feet of water main in an amount not to exceed $75,000. Motion, please.
So moved.
I'll second it.
It's been moved by Alderman Verbeek, seconded by Alderman Stupedja. City Manager Nicholas.
As I point out in the background, Fairgram has been working with us in
Right.
a number of ways. They provide more routine services for us on project-specific expenditures. Then there is an additional cost involved in the day-to-day inspection, and that's what this is about. The proposal is to provide that. Fairgram has made a proposal to provide the engineering for this water main project we just discussed in the amount not to exceed $75,000.
So those two resolutions go hand in hand. Yeah. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Stupicia,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
6 aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Number 4, Resolution 2019-045, authorizing an agreement with Municipal Collections of America for debt collection services. I'd entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Verbic, seconded by Alderman Fagan. City Manager Nicholas.
Thank you, Mayor. I probably said more than I needed to in the background here. But the point is that we'd like some help in collecting bad debt. We have a number of reasons that we want to do that. Some of it has to do with collections relating to cases that have been adjudicated in our administrative hearing process, and then there are other reasons, other bills that are not being paid. And we have found a company, Municipal Collections of America, which has a good record in collecting such debt. Their services are charged as a percentage of the amount recovered, but if, for instance, the amount due was $100 and they were charging 35%, we're not going to receive $100 less $35 they actually add on. So and if we receive anything, it's 100% of the amount that was owed at the time, and if we don't receive anything, they don't get anything. So we feel this is a pretty good system. Oftentimes you're getting 75 cents on the dollar or 65 cents on the dollar this way. They seem to be effective. We recommend your approval.
I think this came out of the administrative hearings scenario, and I know Attorney Frieders worked extensively on this. And Dean, I take it you're in full accord with this recommendation?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Stupicia,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Yes.
Smith, 6 aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Number 5, Resolution 2019-046, authorizing an architectural improvement program economic incentive grant in the amount of $15,000 for Carlson Oak LLC, 118 to 126 Oak Street. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Verbeek, seconded by Alderman Favor. Once again, City Manager Nicholas.
The architectural improvement program is probably more familiar to you than it was to me, but it has been in place for a while. It has been located in TIF 1 fund, and we had some interest expressed about a month ago by Robert and Patricia Carlson for some funding to offset the cost of window replacement at their, what's now an apartment building at 118, 126 Oak Street. Many of you know this is the Brott Milner Building, and there's a lot of history to that if you've been around here for some decades. It's historic in terms of its age and in terms of its various uses and some of the individuals who have been involved in having businesses in this place. Now it's all apartments. The windows, the original, going back to, I believe, 61, 62, they're single pane, steel framed windows, not very energy efficient, and so the owners are looking for some assistance. We have a system for determining what might be available and for what particular projects. This falls into one of the tiers, which allows a maximum 25% reimbursement. Several bids were presented to us. Because the budget is only $50,000, and even though the 25% reimbursement amount would be about $18,000, almost $18,600, I recommended to the Carlsons that we propose a grant of $15,000 so that we can stretch it. This is the beginning, still the early part of the fiscal year. And they were agreeable, and so the grant proposal to you under the Architectural Improvement Program is $15,000. We recommend your approval.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Fagan.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Stupija.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
6 aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Number 6, Resolution 2019-047, authorizing the staffing of one water service maintenance position in the Utilities Division of the Public Works Department. I'd entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Alderman Stupedja, seconded by Alderman Fagan. City Manager Nicholas, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and there's some background to this. You're familiar with the fact that we have a thinner, a leaner Public Works Department, particularly where the Utilities Division is concerned, and also the Street Department. And this time last year, we had a couple vacancies in the Utility Division, and we shifted a Street Division employee to that division to help fill in. There's a vacancy that's in the Street Division. It was created by this transfer, but it hasn't been filled, and that's not what we're proposing. But there was a second vacancy in the Utilities Division, also hasn't been filled, and that's what we're looking to fill now. Given the current level of demand on the Utility Division, which is obviously to maintain the water system, but also in 6 months out of the year to plow snow and salt our highways and help with a variety of things that the Street Division had historically been doing and still does. We're recommending filling this. This is a position that is budgeted, but I'm bringing it back to you because the council would prefer that we propose the filling of these positions, at least for the first 6 months of this year. Now, I'm told by our Public Works staff is the best time to do this, so it's going to take a little while to fill this position, and then we'll be ready to do some work that we do every season as the weather warms.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Stupija.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
6 aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 7, Resolution 2019-048, approving a final plat for the Egyptian Theater subdivision and authorizing a conveyance of real property. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Alderman Favor, seconded by Alderman Stupedja. We have several folks in their audience tonight who finally, thank you for your patience, would like to speak to this item tonight. And I would kindly ask these folks to try to limit it to 3 minutes or less. Okay, our first speaker, Mary Wilson. If all of the speakers, please, would go to the podium and identify themselves. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mary Wilson, and I'm speaking on behalf of my business, the Hillside Restaurant. First, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. As you know, I approached the city with concerns about the construction project to enlarge the Egyptian Theater. My primary goal was to protect the accessibility, ambiance, and viability of the Hillside Restaurant, a business dear to my heart that has shared this mighty part of downtown since 1955. My thanks to Larry and Kay Burke for their diligence during an important moment in the evolution of this area. Since I last spoke to you, I've had the opportunity to tour this theater thanks to Janine, and thank you, Alex, for reaching out to me last week. And I've also had the opportunity to discuss the plans with the project manager, Steve Irving, to fully understand the process. Mr. Irving has assured me that he will do everything in his control to reduce the hardship during this construction. This has helped address some of my concerns about the disruption of our business. I know Steve, and I trust his years of experience, and he has a proven track record. I've also learned that the sewer system will need to be redone around my property. This has presented a new question about timing. There are spatial issues and plumbing updates which we have needed at our building and do not have the financial resources to do so. It would be a lost opportunity to have the sewer torn up and not address this now. Therefore, in the interest of allowing progress, I would like to ask help to update specific facilities at the Hillside Restaurant during the renovations at the Egyptian Theater. Plans are in the process of being drawn, and I hope they're open to suggestion. In this way, we can put out our full support into the project and be part of this renovation instead of being dwarfed by it. We would like to be a partner to this process and not stand in the way of something with so much promise, and hope for the best for the downtown. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mary. Larry Burke.
I'm Larry Burke. I live at 122 North First. I want to say I've been in this room 4 times. First time was when my brother was elevated to chief of police. He grew up 2 blocks from here, he and I did. And I want to thank the police department and the people of DeKalb that work in this building, the city people. When he passed away last year, the honor that they paid him when we went from the Lutheran church to the cemetery. I tell you, we were blown away by the warmth to see those city employees standing out there, and I want to thank them. This is my only opportunity to do that, and I would be remiss not to do that. The second part I want to say is, Kay and I have no objections to the Egyptian Theater. We're in support of the air conditioning. We're in support of the restrooms. We are ticket holders. We go to the theater. We live next door. Our problem is, on December 18th of last year, I came to this council meeting, and I heard that there was going to be air conditioning additions at the Egyptian Theater. So the next morning, I went home that night and I said to Kay, I want to find out what that's all about. So I went over, and Alex took me out to the alley, and he said, yeah, we're going to put it here. We're going to put a 2-story building, and we're going to build it from its current location to the curb. And we're going to put an air conditioner on top the size of a bus. Now, I want to give you just a quick view of what he just told me. I live in this is my home. I look out, and now I look down Palmer Court. I can see 3rd Street on a good day. I want each of you to vision what you have in your kitchen when you look out your window. You see whatever it is. You know what I'm going to see? I'm going to see a wall about 15 feet away. You know, that building has been there for, I don't know, 50 years. We are neighbors of the theater. They tried to buy our building a couple of years ago. And you know what? They don't have the common courtesy to come over and go over the plans. The city of DeKalb has a representative on the Egyptian Theater Board and doesn't find the time to come over and tell us or the other neighborhood people. Shame on them. There is no excuse. I don't want to hear an excuse from any of them. We're only 15 feet from them. We wouldn't be here raising Cain like this. This is not my personality. I'm a person that glass is half full, it's not half empty. And I'm not down here raising hell for any other reason. There are other alternatives. There are other alternatives, and we've tried to pursue them, and we pointed them out to no available. We met with, we had 2 meetings with, after this came about. In fact, Gavin and Mary found out about this on about the 15th of January. They finally got a notice. They never went around to everyone in the neighborhood. They never spoke to all the tenants. I'll tell you what, I did. There are a lot of issues in that alley still. Now, we could live with the footprint that they've laid out, but there are other concessions that need to be made. And they're big concessions. There is a way out of this, but we need time to do it. We met with Mr. Steve Irving. He was in that meeting. Mayor, you were there because you apologized to me for not having informed the people in the neighborhood. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yep.
And you're well beyond your 3, Larry, so
Okay.
try to wrap it up.
Okay, I'll wrap it up. Mr. Irving had a plan. It was a single floor plan. He gave me a drawing of it. We can live with it, but it hasn't surfaced. And it would be a part of any negotiations that we would have, I would hope, to reduce the size of this and for the city and the theater to reduce the expense. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Lisa Sharp.
Good evening, Council. I'm Lisa Sharp with Sharp Architects. We're a local architecture firm at 125 North First Street, and I'm also happen to be a resident of the 600 block of South 2nd Street. Real quick, I know we only have 3 minutes, but there's 3 things I'd like to address. First, the location of this addition that we're proposing, the size of the footprint, and timing. First, location at the south side of the building. I've seen on media that people are suggesting to the east or to the west. The reality is we've looked at those locations. We need direct access to the south side of this building to tie into existing HVAC distribution. That is the most economical and straightforward way to tie into the existing HVAC system. To go elsewhere would cause a considerable more expense and work on everybody's part. The south side location also puts the restrooms that we're proposing adjacent to the foyers off the theater. It's the right place for them to go. Setting them either to the east or west, again, means a bigger addition, more property to purchase, and it also means possibly displacing other businesses. So we really do feel like the south side of this building is the place where this addition should go. The size of the footprint. We have been working on this design for months. We have looked at a single unit on the roof. We have looked at a single unit in the basement. Our current plan, and we think the best plan, is to have two 50-ton air handlers in the basement. I don't usually direct council or planning commissioners to look at basement plans, but if you get a chance, I'm down to about 4 inches of excess space to fit 2 air handlers in the basement. I don't like designing Swiss watches. That's really tight. We still have to get all the plumbing and everything in there as well. It is really tight. I do not have room to reduce the footprint of this building without major accommodations for the HVAC equipment. HVAC design for theaters is a very complex process. You do not want to hear the sound of the HVAC equipment. That means that all of the ductwork is oversized. You do not want to see the theater, you do not want to see the curtains shake and get sucked in or pushed away with pressure changes. It's a very, very high level design of HVAC. It's not just, these are not like through wall motel unit air conditioning. This is an entire heating and air conditioning system that we're designing. Thirdly, timing. We are at a point that if we are going to hit the window for tying in the new addition to the existing building during the theater's downtime in January, we have got to get going with the rest of the design of this process, which means we need a commitment from the city on the amount of property that they will have access to. We've already basically lost about 6 weeks looking at other accommodations for this footprint. We have shifted the building 11 foot east. It was going to align with the existing west edge of the building. We have improved the facade. We have stepped things back. There was just discussion about maybe a one-story building, but we could do a one-story building, but then we have great big air condensers sitting on top of that roof. That will be the view for the neighbors, is looking at great big air condensers. So it really is not a realistic expectation. And then when you want to do bathrooms for on the mezzanine in the future, you're going to have to pull all that equipment off the roof, build a second floor, and do it all over again. We're trying to spend the city's money wisely. I would encourage you to support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Alex Nered.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Alex Neard. I'm the Executive Director at the Egyptian Theater. First, I want to thank you for your ongoing TIF support. We understand and appreciate the significance of the support that's been committed to this project. This project is way bigger than me, our board, or anyone in this room. You have the ability to make a significant positive impact tonight for the next 90 years of this community treasure. The Egyptian Theater Board of Directors had met extensively over the past few months to discuss this project and address the concerns brought forward by one of our neighbors. In response to those concerns, we have dramatically improved the architectural detail, as Lisa talked about, on the outside of the expansion, bringing a significant visual improvement to the alley. We have moved the expansion as far east as we can and downsized the expansion to the smallest footprint we can without no longer having room for the air conditioning. The current concept, even through our attempts to find a compromise with one of our neighbors with concerns, has 4 less women's toilets, 200 square feet less storage, the loss of an additional public entrance and vestibule. We feel strongly that this project will have a significant positive cultural and economic impact on the community. You have in your backup material signatures of support from 8 other businesses on the block along Palmer Court, who I did personally speak with every single one of them about this project and convey to them our efforts through the construction process, how much we want to work with them to make sure that we don't negatively impact their businesses. So we're thankful for those 8 businesses' support of this project. I want to thank you lastly for your leadership on this strongly supported community project, and we ask for your approval tonight so that we can continue moving forward on this exciting project. And I'll be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Our final speaker on this particular agenda item is Steve Irving.
Steve Irving for Arrowhead Lane, DeKalb. I do want to make a correction to Larry's comment. I did reach out to him in December about this proposed project, and it was not a one-story plan that I showed him, but a two-story plan with the second level being shifted further east. I just want to talk about briefly the timing. Regardless of if this air conditioning is put in this year, next year, 5 or 10 years from now, timing's absolutely critical. The whole plan is to start the construction the end of May, early June, do some excavation, some demolition of existing building, tear all the existing heating and air conditioning out of the building, get the new air conditioning and heating units into the basement, and have them connected so that there's heat in that building by mid-October of some year. The units take 2 to 3 months to pre-order, and the other thing I wanted to mention, if most of us have been at the theater, it's kind of interesting. I know talking to Mary Wilson, she shares her bathrooms with the overflow of people waiting to use the bathrooms at the Egyptian Theater. And it's critical. If you read an article in the Wall Street Journal recently about LaGuardia Airport in New York, the #1 feature, the #1 complaint was the condition of the bathrooms. And this plan really addresses that issue for both the men and the women. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I think the #1 complaint here at the Egyptian Theater might be the lack of bathrooms for those of us who go to the Egyptian Theater frequently. Okay, those are the public comments, and I do appreciate all of them, and I appreciate you trying to limit your comments in a timely fashion. And I'd like now to ask City Manager Nicholas to speak to this item, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The council has some considerable background, and I'm not going to repeat all that. I've thought about this just as the speakers have here in the audience tonight, at least since the first moment I was appointed city manager. In fact, I sat here in the room on December 18th and heard the presentation for the first time. And at that point, I didn't know anything about an addition, and I didn't know anything about how it was going to, how the air conditioning was going to be affected. So what's before the council tonight are two items. One is the approval of the plat, which the mayor read in the introduction. It's a plat that shows an irregular shaped area of about 2,277 square feet. It's within the city-owned Palmer Court, and it's proposed that this particular area would be conveyed to the Egyptian Theater. The purposes have been outlined here tonight. And the second piece is the actual conveyance of the area defined on the plat. There would be other, if the council approved these two items, there would be other elements yet to address, and one would be the agreement in which the city grant would be extended and what the conditions might be with that. The conveyance of land, as you know from the background, according to our municipal code, requires an extraordinary majority of 3/4 of the corporate authorities, and that's defined as the mayor and the council, which means a vote of 6 out of the 8 or more. In preparing some remarks for tonight's discussion, I was struck by how apropos the term extraordinary is in this instance. Certainly when a council parts with city property, it's in the citizens' best interest that the council do this thoughtfully, with broad support by our elected officials. Extraordinary is certainly a fitting adjective, and I've also been struck by the extraordinary dedication shown over many decades by a series of Egyptian theater boards going back to, what was it, Alex, 1930, or when did they? 1929. 29, I was close. and by a particularly dedicated director in recent decades, to see that this historic theater has the ability to program year-round, which is what the air conditioning is a lot about. And just as extraordinary as the decades of dedication by business owners nearby, Gavin and Mary Wilson, Larry and Kay Burke, they've operated their businesses in the shadow of the grand Egyptian facility for many decades, and only those who have operated family businesses can fully appreciate the sacrifices that are required over so many years. And we're once again witness to the extraordinary commitment of Steve and T.J. Irving and their family business, and their interest in yet another not-for-profit project that will transform services in our city. And finally, and not least, I think there's another way that we think of extraordinary, and that's the council's interest in downtown redevelopment. It's palpable. It's one of the things that encouraged me to apply for the job I have. You have raised expectations. You want to deliver some magic to our historic central business district, and I applaud you for that. And altogether, these elements, you would think, would add up to a moment of celebration, but that's not the feel we have here tonight. The mere approval of a plat is clearly not the issue, and it's the perceived impact of the proposed addition on the court. So what's the best course of action for the council, which is waiting to weigh in here? What's the win-win that all these extraordinary people deserve? Is it captured in a plat before you? Maybe. And what's the design for such an outcome? And I mean that in both the literal and the figurative sense. So I believe only the council, with its extraordinary corporate responsibility regarding our property, can answer that. But it's my job to recommend an option worthy of this extraordinary moment. And in your background, I recommended approval. There's been the conversation and give and take since that time, and conversation I've had with members of the council. What I'm recommending tonight is that the council defer action on this item and direct the Egyptian Theater leadership and design team and those property owners who have taken the time to come out tonight in the next 2 weeks, not indefinitely, in the next 2 weeks, to see if there is any additional room for compromise in the design of that addition, and that we come back to the next council meeting on March 11th with the results. I also recommend that the city assume the cost, if there is any additional architectural or mechanical design work that might be necessary to draft out a compromise. Time is of the essence to achieve the goal of substantial completion of the Palmer Court construction in the coming construction season, as Steve mentioned. So we have to be aggressive. Interior remodeling that will follow the shelling up of this addition, whatever shape and size it is, will have to occur when there is the usual pause in Egyptian theater programming at the end of the calendar year. $2.5 million is an extraordinary sum. We ought to be able to find that win-win outcome with such an investment. Your direction is requested.
Prior to discussion by the council, since our meetings that Larry Burke alluded to earlier, if Bill and I have had one discussion on an item about the Egyptian Theater, we've had a dozen, haven't we? Mm-hmm. This is very, very meaningful to us. And I know it is, as you alluded to, Bill, to this council. And whatever decision we make tonight, whatever decision we've made over the past 2 years, the progress that we've made in this community on the Egyptian Theater is remarkable. Can you imagine where we were 1.5 to 2 years ago? And now we've moved to somewhere where I think, as Bill suggests, well, maybe a little compromise is the way to go. That's his recommendation. that is enough of the mayor's statements. I'd like now to turn it over to council folks to chime in. Alderman Fagan.
First of all, I'd like to say that, you know, we're all for the Egyptian Theater, and I want to see this work. And I think we can get this one worked. I do have some questions. Alex, I've got a question. I believe that when I was watching the meeting the other night, you said there'd be an additional 4,000 patrons?
In terms of what?
Having air conditioning for the summer concerts or whatever you have going?
Yeah, actually, our current projections, so right now we have about 40,000 people a year that come through our doors. Our projections for within the first couple of years is that would actually increase by 14,000 up to about 54,000 by able to do programming through the summer months and the peripheral months.
So how many more additional patrons do you believe?
An additional 14,000. So
14,000.
From 40 to 54.
Okay. And I guess where I kind of want to go a little farther for our city manager to look at for the next 2 weeks is the money. Because it really does come down to, it's always the money. When I look at this, we've got $2.5 million of TIF money. It's a $4.5 million job project. You say you got donations. Now I heard the other day it was $750,000. Now on the paper you gave us it was $1 million of donations and commitments.
Correct.
How much is that actual cash? How much have you received out of that $1 million?
I don't know the number off the top of my head. We have had a significant portion of that has actually been received in hand, and the remaining being commitments at this point. Not listed on the letter that I gave you tonight are a number of grants that we hope to hear back from in the coming weeks as well. So we're continuing to move aggressively forward with the rest of the fundraising on this project. And just to be completely honest with you, a number of the donors we're talking to are waiting to see what the city does. They want to see that we're going to be able to move forward with this project, that we have the property, that the funds are committed before they commit as well. So hopefully you can appreciate kind of that catch-22 situation.
I know I can appreciate the cart and the horse theory, but
Yeah.
I would also appreciate coming up here and saying how much cash you received out of that $1 million too.
Yeah, and that's certainly something I can get back to council. You know,
Absolutely, absolutely, please. And then we've got another $1 million out there. We don't want to get into the same situation we had with the library. The other TIP projects that we've had have been vetted through bankers, private money. I'm not seeing the vetting being done here. Like I said, I want to make sure this works, but I don't want to come back and be here a year from now and looking and having a request for another $1 million, $500,000, or even $250,000, because we've already given $5 million to the Egyptian Theater to date that I know of. So I'm going to ask the city manager if he check into that also, vet that out. I mean, between everyone working together, I'm sure we can work something out that we can all come together on. We do all want to make this work, but I think the money situation needs to be vetted out also.
Yeah, if I can just respond to that, and I appreciate those concerns. That's certainly something that our board has continued to talk about for months. We have a development committee that's joint board members as well as community members that are meeting on a monthly basis to work on that. One of the members is a local community banker. And so we've talked about that. The reality is if we get some donors that want to give over multiple years, which we have donors talking about that, we could look at getting financing from a local bank to help cover those upfront construction costs as we get those donations through the couple of years. And to get that financing would only be contingent upon commitments from donors. And so that's something that it would be a little challenging to just get upfront the full, financing commitment to that until we can continue to get those commitments from donors.
Well, that's what I'm looking for. I know it's going to be challenging. The whole thing's challenging for everyone. But we do have, like I said, it's the money. And when we're financing, when we're putting up $2.5 million, we want to see where the rest of the money is before somebody else comes back and asks for it. But with that said, I also think that in the next couple weeks, this all can be vetted out, and pretty much everybody come to an agreement.
So you're buying into Bill's recommendation?
Absolutely.
Okay, take a little
Absolutely.
more time. Okay. Any other comments? Alderman Stupedja.
I'd like to know, Alex, if you may, this delay, which is 2 weeks, is that again going to be costly?
Yeah, I mean, and I've shared with most of you to date with the 6-week delay that we've gone through, already making significant compromises to the original concept of this project. We've already incurred over an additional $12,000 in fees as we've worked through these multiple iterations that we've put forward and come to this compromise. So obviously, any further delay at this point continues to increase those costs that the theater is already incurring and potentially gets to the point where we miss our window of time to get this done and have the theater open for summer of 2020, which then pushes us back to summer of 2021.
Right, and if we're going to compromise the present plaque and the architectural rendering, then there again, we've got another cost, right? If we don't go with the resolution that's before us tonight.
Correct, and it's worth noting, what's before you is already after, significant conversations, multiple attempts at redesigning this, and as Lisa alluded to, we're within 4 inches of the minimum requirements needed for the air conditioning units. So our board does feel like we've made significant efforts at this point to find a compromise that everyone would be happy with.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? Bill, given what you've heard tonight from Mr. Irving, from the Burks, from Mary Wilson, from Lisa, and from Alex, is there anything new there that would color your recommendation to postpone this recommendation for a couple weeks to allow the parties to do what we would hope they could do?
Well, based on conversations I've had with aldermen in recent days, I understood that there were a number of reasons why 2 weeks would make a difference.
2 weeks would not make a difference.
Would make a difference.
Would make a difference, okay. Alderman Favor?
I know what it feels like to have the view from your property change significantly. 15 years ago, my wife and I built a house, and we had a beautiful view of the lake, looking across out to the country, to the west of our home. We were promised that there would be no more homes built in our subdivision to the west of us, and probably within, I think it was under a year, they built a house right next to us. So our neighbors, they built their home, they put in extra windows, they put in an extra large office on the west side of their home because of the beautiful view that they had. And 6 months later, somebody built a house next to them. So I understand, that you have a nice view from your property. The problem with that is you don't control the properties around you. If you want to guarantee the view that you have to purchase those properties as well. I see many positives for proceeding with the project. We talk about what an economic generator that the Egyptian Theater is for downtown. I would be concerned, talking with Alex, if this is going to delay this into 2021. Again, I'm okay with delaying it if there's really going to be a compromise, but if we're just delaying it, just to delay it, as Alex had said, and I think Lisa had said at the Planning and Zoning Commission, there's been 3 redesigns already, and none of them have been satisfactory. And the layout of the theater requires some of the equipment to be where it's at. I've been to Palmer Court 3 times this week, walked up and down. I think for the community, I believe this project to be for the community, that the way the project is laid out, that this to be the best option.
Alderman Stepedja.
Yeah, I think it's very important at this time to realize that it's not only beneficial for the area. This project is beneficial for DeKalb, our entire city. And I think by postponing anything at this point, it is going to be costly. It's going to be a postponement, and postponements to me mean money. And sometimes what also may happen is your person that was interested is now no longer interested, and then you have a piece of historical property. Perhaps in the future, you'll say, we can make a parking area out of it. That's all.
Any further discussion? Alderman Jacobson.
Again, when you're talking about the long-term reality of this building, that it's been up for decades, so close to a century, over a century, close to a century at this point, and likely will be with the money we've put into it for decades or centuries, hopefully more going forward. Again, I think it behooves us to spend the time and make sure that we do it right. I don't believe that a 2-week delay, well, it could be frustrating and it could be annoying. Again, I think it behooves us to get it right with a $2.5 million project and make sure that the neighbors are on board, make sure that the business owners and the other stakeholders are on board, make sure that all of the questions are answered and boxes are checked and security and safety issues have been vetted and guaranteed, and all those other questions that are coming to bear are answered. And I think our city manager has shown the willingness to step up and put in that time to try to do those things for us. I believe it makes sense to give and empower him with that ability to do so. And again, 2 weeks in the grand scheme of a major build-out project, again, it can be frustrating, it can be annoying, but generally, if you're going down the path, it can be made up in other areas, and it can be dealt with through the course of the project. So again, I would favor in supporting what our city manager is recommending at this point, and I would agree that a 2-week delay to try to get one last-ditch effort to get everybody on board and make everybody happy and answer all those questions is reasonable, and I would support that if it were so moved in that direction.
Any further comments? Alderman Verbeek.
Yeah, I also agree with the comments from the city manager and my colleagues. From a standpoint, I appreciate this information, financial information here in front of us. It's informative, but it's still incomplete. And I'm unwilling for this council to be libraried again, meaning that the project comes to us, all of a sudden it needs $1 million or $500,000 or any amount really, because contributions fell short. This was what happened at the library. This put us in a very difficult situation to justify to the public, to the taxpayers. I don't want us to go through that again. And for me, as long as this has taken the years and years, and thanks to all of you, another 2 weeks for due diligence to make sure that the city of DeKalb is not on the hook to deliver this project, I'm game.
Alderman Fagan.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for this resolution to be tabled for 2 weeks till the next city council meeting.
Postponed?
Postponed.
Second.
So the motion to postpone consideration of this resolution for 2 weeks. The motion has been made by Alderman Fagan. It has been seconded by Alderman Verbeek. Any discussion on the motion to postpone? Alderman Stepedja.
How many votes do we need for this?
We only need a majority on the motion to postpone.
But we won't need more than a majority.
No, no. Because frankly, if we were to have voted on the motion, or on the resolution to approve the final plat, we would need 6 votes. And from what I hear tonight, we don't have 6 votes.
Mayor, if I can just ask a question, if we're going to delay this for 2 weeks, I would just ask for some clarification from council as to what they would like to see in 2 weeks, so that we don't come back in 2 weeks and be at a standstill again.
Fair question. I think what our city manager is recommending is that the design team meet with the folks who feel that the approval of the final plat, as we that we have before us tonight, is unworkable. And what our city manager is recommending is that we take the next 2 weeks to get those folks to compromise. I, like Mr. Burke, I see a glass half full most of the time. That glass right now, in my mind, is still half full, but it's leaking. It's leaking. And Bill said that $2.5 million is an extraordinary sum for an extraordinary project, I think, the way you put it, Bill. So if our city manager is confident that we can move forward over the next 2 weeks with a meeting of the mind, so to speak, and come up with something, so be it. And at the very least, Alex, I think what we may have lost is only 2 weeks. But I want to answer your question more directly, and that is some of the points that were brought up by Alderman Fagan, perhaps echoed somewhat by Alderman Verbeek. I think over the next 2 weeks it would probably be healthy, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, Alderman Fagan. I wouldn't attempt to do that. But correct me if I'm wrong. What you're looking for is some more meat in the game as it relates to a further additional information regarding the Egyptian Theater's ability to follow through on the remaining $2 million of this $4.5 million.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah, I just want to make sure,
Okay.
What money do they have now? What is, other than well-wishing, is the money that's going to come in? I mean, the actual commitments. And I understand what you said about, well, they won't want to give the money until we do. Well, we're not going to give anything until we see everything also. So I don't think, if anybody's going to be giving money to the Egyptian Theater, which I think is admirable, but we want to see it also. We want to see something firm. I do.
Does that give you a clearer indication, Alex, or?
A little bit.
Okay.
So hopefully we can continue to work with staff over the next 2 weeks to work on that. I just wanted to make sure that it was clear for council and the public how much effort has gone in over the last 6 weeks in delaying this process. It's not just another 2-week delay. It's already been 6 weeks of a delay with significant compromise already. And so, every single time, we've attempted to see if we can find anything else that we can find, a win-win for everybody. That's been our goal all along. That's why we immediately went back to the drawing board after the first concerns came forward. And just want to make sure, I did hand out a letter tonight to everybody on council from our board with a commitment that we are not coming back to the city for any additional TIF funds for this project. We've committed that well before
Yes.
this project got underway, so it's important for us to make that commitment public. We also do have a contingency, not that we hope to use it, but we have a contingency that has been worked out with Irving Construction. They estimate the completion of the interior of the second floor to be about $750,000. And so if there was a scenario where fundraising didn't get to where it needed to be for the full $4.5 million, we could complete the structure and the shell and not finish out the interior of the second floor. And by deducting that, where we're at today with the city commitment and our individual donors and incoming grants, we're basically there as we are today. So we feel pretty confident that we're able to move forward with this project in one fashion or another, and to be able to get this done and bring the improvement for the community that you guys have been looking for and challenging the Egyptian for years, to be able to be in a situation where the theater can be open year-round, provide greater impact to the community, and be in a financial situation to be more stable. And obviously, the sooner we can get the theater operating year-round, the sooner that will come to fruition.
Thank you. Alderman Fanouken. Welcome, Bill.
Well, thank you. I apologize for being late. Just sometimes busy schedules do get in the way. And it's not because I was playing for the White Sox. But, well, I'm not overwhelming in favor of the delay. I certainly see where we could at least attempt some additional compromise here. I would hope if we do vote to delay this for 2 weeks, that we could have somebody from staff, Bill, you or somebody else, as they are meeting, be the mediator and help maybe bring about a compromise. I think that would be important as we move forward. And that would also give the neutral party being able to provide some information next week too, or in 2 weeks.
Thank you. City Manager Nicholas, are you comfortable with that?
I am.
We have a motion on the floor, a second, that we postpone consideration of Resolution 2019-048. We need a majority vote on this to pass the postponement of this resolution. Roll call.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Stupija,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
7-0.
There goes the summer vacation.
Steve, thanks for your comments. Yeah. Let me just say this before folks leave on this. This was not an easy 7-0 decision. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. 7-0 decision on the part of this council. Larry, you mentioned about compromise. That's what you saw here tonight. We compromised because we felt that the recommendation of our city manager made some sense, even though it flew in the face of what some of the folks with whom we've been working with for months, years, to get to this point. So I commend the council for the discussion. I commend you folks to come out to speak to this item, and we've got some major work to do and some major compromise to accomplish over the next 2 weeks. Thank you. Okay, I don't know if this will be nearly as interesting, but we have resolution number 2019-049, authorizing the purchase of one vehicle through Rush Truck Center based on the state bid contract price in an amount not to exceed $175,193. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Stupedja, seconded by Alderman Favor. City Manager Nicholas, please.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I don't think this will be as controversial, but timing is an issue in this. So we're in need of a new truck, and these big dumps are very expensive. There is an amount that had been budgeted to cover this, and this is why we need it. We have long time been participating in the state bid process, as you know, and that's a wonderful thing. But it's gotten to the point where once you put in for a bid and you eventually know you're going to get a truck or whatever it is at the price that you can afford, it sometimes takes 6 months or more to get that. The company, Rush Truck Center, is willing to give us, sell us a truck within the bid amount, the state bid amount, and within our budget at the 2018 price. And that's pretty much unheard of, but they happen to have a truck, they're looking to unload, and we're looking to buy. And so we're interested in proceeding as rapidly as possible to seize this opportunity. And the 2004 truck that would be replaced by this would be put to good use. It's still in decent condition, would be put to good use by the street department, and we hope you'll support this request.
Alderman Fanouken.
Question, are we taking any vehicles out of service?
No, the 2004 truck is the one that we're upgrading to a different truck, and that truck is going to stay in service for other purposes.
So we're expanding the fleet, though?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I jump in on that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, to clarify, we have several full-size dumps that are currently inoperable. So they're in the fleet, but they're essentially out of use. So at some point, we would be looking to surplus or salvage those.
Well, why didn't we use those as trade-in then on this purchase?
I don't know that there's any residual value on those, but we could certainly look into that.
Well, I mean, the deal's probably set now. It's probably too late. You would have had to do it when you went to get the pricing. But I think that's something we should consider when we go out to purchase future vehicles, at least consider trade-ins. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have you been in the transportation business or something?
Just a couple of years.
A few years. Yeah.
For a few years, yeah. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Alderman Favorite.
I just have a question. Is, in the budget, I think it was 2 times ago, I think a new dump truck we were looking at that time was $145,000, maybe 2 years ago. Has the price gone up, or is this a larger truck potentially?
I'll defer to Tim Holdeman on this, because he knows more about this particular request.
The original budget included a single axle dump, and this is a tandem axle.
Okay. Yep, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve this resolution. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Stupicia.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now we go into ordinances. We have at least 2, I believe, that are on second reading. No, we have 3 of our ordinances that are being brought back as second reading. And the first one is ordinance 2019-006, amending Chapter 2, City Council. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by Alderman Fanouken and seconded by Alderman Verbic. We have one person in the audience who would like to speak to this item, and that is Steve Capitan.
Hi, Steve Capitan, 3rd Ward. I won't repeat what I shared with the council at the last meeting. I would only reference with regard to tonight, the city manager mentioned the dilemma that could arise if someone wanted to speak to multiple issues at the beginning of the meeting, that if they wanted to speak to 5 issues, 3 minutes each, that'd be 15 minutes. So he was raising the question of whether or not your decision would be to limit that to just the 3 minutes. my recollection, I spent 12 years on the city council. I cannot remember anyone ever speaking to 5 items at any meeting. And generally, I would say 3 would be the max, and even that's not that common. I'm sympathetic with the idea that you might want to limit that space at the beginning of the meeting, perhaps to one topic, if someone wants to speak up front. But you could give the mayor some flexibility to grant some additional time if that person wanted to speak to multiple issues at the beginning of the meeting. So that could be a possible option. But I think this is a positive step in expanding the flexibility of the council hearing from the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Well, we can turn this back to you, City Manager Nicholas, although I'm sure you have talked quite a bit about this and looked at it, and we've made changes over the discussion of it in our
I was just interested to know, Mayor,
our first reading.
If I've caught what the council's direction was from the last meeting, and I provided a little bit of detail, as Steve mentioned, to try to direct your attention to the changes I made.
Yeah, well, we made considerable number of changes in Chapter 2, City Council, if you looked at the background material. Alderman Fanouken.
You know, my recollection is from 2 weeks ago that it was going to be 3 minutes per item, not 3 minutes per meeting. That's my recollection of what we talked about 2 minutes ago. So that if somebody, as Steve said, spoke to 2 or 3 items, it would be 3 minutes each time. And now, yes, it could be 9 minutes if they wanted to do it all in public participation, but what we also talked about was that speaking up front could get lost in relation to that particular agenda item, particularly if they were to speak to a couple of separate items. So that's my recollection, as I'm saying. And not just 3 minutes per meeting. Now, they could choose to speak for 3 minutes in public participation, and then choose to speak, and I'll use 2 items tonight, for example, 3 minutes on the Egyptian, and then 3 minutes on the dump truck, and that would be 9 minutes. Now, they couldn't, I'm not suggesting they take all 9 minutes at once, but I think a 3-minute limitation, at least that's was my understanding of our discussion from 2 weeks ago.
Well, I think you've got to have it one way or the other. Either it's 3 minutes per meeting or 3 minutes per session, or per item.
Right.
And if you say 3 minutes per item, it's 3 minutes per item.
Right.
Folks are going to take it. Now, again, I think, if I recall, there is something in the ordinance there that gives the presiding officer, in this case the mayor, the authority to give someone the floor, if you will, to speak to an item.
Mr. Mayor, may
yes.
I just read what I have in here? I think,
yes.
And maybe I'm just looking right past what Alderman Fanouken was saying, but I think I captured what you just suggested, Bill. So here's the passage. Public participation shall also be utilized for persons wishing to speak to an item listed on the consent agenda or any topic not listed as an item for separate action. So that's at the front of the agenda. In addition, persons wishing to offer public comment shall have the right to speak at the time of presentation of any item for separate action. And then it goes on to say how that would be done. All it's pointing out here is that you don't get 2 bites of the apple, and I think that was a phrase that was used at the last meeting by somebody. So if you spoke at the public participation, taking tonight, for example, about the Egyptian, you didn't get to speak to it again on the agenda. But if you spoke at public participation about the trucks at the front, and then you wanted to speak to the Egyptian, you could do that.
Right, but in here, in an underlined in the background material says the ordinance contemplates 3 minutes per speaker per meeting. And that's
On
underlined
the,
in your...
maybe I could have said that more artfully. So that was on that topic.
Well, this says per meeting, and that's why it's
Okay.
confusing.
It
now.
does, yes.
Okay.
And it's underlined.
Okay.
This
Well-
ordinance contemplates 3 minutes per speaker per meeting.
This is what I
Okay.
wanted, this is why it's up
Yep.
for review.
So we could,
We can
Per
amend
is
it.
there consensus that 3 minutes per speaker per item would make more sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then I will make the motion to pass the ordinance with an amendment that it reads 3 minutes per speaker per item.
Okay, a motion has been made to that effect. Do I have a second?
I think the city manager wants to jump
No,
in.
I'll wait, only in discussion, when you get to
Okay.
discussion.
Do I have a second?
I think I've said my
okay.
piece on it.
It's been moved by Alderman Fanouken and seconded by Alderman Jacobson that we approve this ordinance on second reading with the amended language to reflect that a speaker would have 3 minutes per item, not per meeting. Is that, did I read it? Huh?
That's the gist of it, yes.
Okay, that's the gist of it. City Manager
So-
Nicholas.
Then, here's an example. Tonight, if you spoke in public participation, you said, I have an opinion about the Egyptian issue, and you said what you wanted to say for 3 minutes. And then you also filled out a speaker request form to speak to it more specifically later on, as you heard a little bit of other speakers and so forth, and you want to get up again and speak to the Egyptian theater item. I heard last week that you weren't in favor of that.
No, we are not. No, we.
Okay. So it's
that is
more
correct.
than just that you get to speak to 3 minutes to any item, provided you haven't already spoken to that item.
Yes, right.
Okay, so there has
Two
to be some
separate
other
items.
phrase in there.
Yeah, two separate.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the definition in this case of item would be topic. Okay? The topic would be either the Egyptian theater or the topic would be
Okay.
the purchase of a dump truck.
We can, maybe we ought to spell this out and bring it, we'll have more conversation about the changes, proposed changes, but let's spell this out and bring it back so it exactly reflects the council's opinion. Unless you want us to try to craft something now, which we could.
Why shouldn't we be able to craft that now?
Well, we can take some time and do it.
I mean, do we want to bring this back again?
Not particularly, but I think it's important that we get this right, so we
Oh,
don't have to amend
absolutely.
it.
No, I'm not arguing that.
Are you working on it?
What does our city attorney say?
He is working on it as we
He's
speak.
wordsmithing.
Okay. And you heard the motion to pass with the amendment regarding that particular point, Dean, and the second. We have not yet voted on that yet, but we're voting on passage of the entire ordinance with that amendment.
So in this discussion moment, we'll bring back some language.
Okay.
If anybody has some of that elevator music, we can play it in the background. You have it? Good.
So it sounds like what the council is looking for would be an amendment to subsection D3 with regard to the time limitation. Public comment shall be limited to 3 minutes per speaker, with that limitation applying per time addressing the council, parentheses, with the right to address the council only one time per agenda item or topic. So you can address the council one time per agenda item or one time per topic. You get 3 minutes every time you come up to council to talk.
I think that clarifies it very well, what our intent is up here.
Right. Are you satisfied with that?
Provided the amendment passes.
Right.
Roll call.
On the amendment, correct?
On the
amendment.
On the amendment, initially, yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupidja.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
7-0.
We do have a motion on the floor now and a second to Or I guess we do not. We need a motion to approve the ordinance as amended.
Didn't we do that already? If not, I'll move.
Okay. The original motion we had earlier on, before we started talking about the amendment, was simply the Chapter 2 City Council, but we had not amended it at that point.
Right, but, so now that motion as amended, if there was already a motion on the floor for that, is where we should.
Oh, okay.
We should not need- not
I would concur with
need-
Alderman Fanouken. A vote on the underlying motion now as amended would be in order.
Right, okay. Roll call.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupija.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, number 2, this is another ordinance, on, again, second reading, and this is omnibus approval of ordinances establishing backup special service areas as follows. Ordinance 2019-008, Fatties/Culvers. Ordinance 2019-009, Popeyes. Ordinance 2019-010, University Village. Ordinance 2019-011, University Plaza. Ordinance 2019-012, First Rockford Nelson. Ordinance 2019-013, Casey's. Ordinance 2019-014, Cornerstone. Ordinance 2019-05, Sonic. Ordinance 2019-016, Bandits Castle. Ordinance 2019-017, 1114 Black Hawk Road. Ordinance 2019-018, Home 2 Suites. Ordinance 2019-019, 1792 Sycamore Road. Ordinance 2019-020, Plaza DeKalb. And Ordinance 2019-021, establishing an active special service area for 924 Greenbrier Road. I'd entertain a motion to approve this or omnibus approval.
So moved. Second.
Been moved by Alderman Verbeek, seconded by Alderman Fanouken. Bill, do we need to speak any further on this?
No, sir.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupija.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. Motion passes. Ordinance number 2019-023, amending Chapter 38, Section 38.01, Definitions, Section 38.07, Classification of Liquor Licenses, and Section 38-13, Restrictions Applicable to Hospitality Sales. This is second reading. Motion, please.
So moved.
It's been moved by Alderman Favor, seconded by Alderman Verbeek. Bill, Nicholas, City Manager.
We
this
talked
is-
about this at the last meeting.
This is the
in
Mason,
detail. The regulated liquor license for indoor sports simulation
Yeah.
facilities.
The golf scenario, right? Any further discussion? Roll call.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupija.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes. Thank you. Now we go to ordinances on the first reading. Ordinance 2019-025, amending Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance, Article 7, Supplementary District Regulations, Article 12, Off-Street Parking and Loading Requirements, Article 13, Signs, Article 16, Administration and Enforcement, and Article 18, Appeals and Variances. This is first reading. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Favor, seconded by Alderman Stupedja. Bill, would you speak to this item, please?
Yes, and credit to our principal planner, Dan Olson, who gave a very detailed memorandum, which I know you had in your background. I'll just say very briefly that these are generally considered miscellaneous text amendments. They range from the incidentals, such as changing references to the Board of Appeals, where it should be now Planning and Zoning Commission as appropriate, clarifying what variances may be pursued in keeping with state statutes, but then also some substantive things such as the type of fences allowed, alternate paving materials, which occupied some of the time of the Plan Commission in the last month and a half or so for parking lots and driveways, some slight variations in landscaping and berming requirements for front yards and so forth. And I'll be happy to defer to Mr. Olson if you have any specific questions, but all these have come to you through the Planning and Zoning Commission, which recommended by a vote of 5-0 your approval.
Good. Any further discussion on these? We appreciate the efforts of Dan Olson and the Planning and Zoning Commission. Roll call.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupedja.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Made it just.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes, so moved. Our second ordinance under first reading is Ordinance 2019-026, amending the fiscal year-end December 31, 2019, FY 2019 budget in the amount of $877,000 for payments to the Illinois Treasurer and Illinois State Toll Highway Authority for capital improvement projects. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Fanouken, seconded by Alderman Fagan. City Manager Nicholas.
This still remains ooey-gooey to me, because whenever you're dealing with large flows of state and federal dollars over many years, according to various plans that you have seen over the years, you wonder where do we get the money? Well, we have money that we have received on a grant basis. We've, in this case, parked it in the motor fuel tax fund. There are 3 projects here. One concerns what we talked about over the last couple meetings, that intersection Annie-Glidden and Fairview Drive. There was a local share there. Some of that was offset by a grant of $70,000 from the DeKalb Township Road District back on February 11th. And that amount of money, which was not put in our budget, has to be put in the budget. That's what we're asking you to do, is to amend the budget. And then there's another project, the Kishwaukee-Kiwanis multi-use path, which has been a very popular, from what I can tell, idea and concept, and there's a local share, and we've been working on this for a year and almost 2 years, and the actual dollar amount is $257,000 that would be needed to pay the Illinois Treasurer for our local share. And finally, the Peace Road Bridge, again, a project that's been discussed for some time. It was about a year ago that you passed a resolution, or the council passed a resolution to pay our share of the reduced cost of surface repairs to Peace Road Bridge, and we've received an invoice, and we need to approve a budget amendment in the amount of $215,000. How do all these amendments get taken care of? When are you going to see them? Our objective is we're tallying these. We've done a number of these since I've been here in the first of the year, and we're going to reflect all those in a revised budget probably at mid-year. You'll see them reflected so that you know exactly where we stand, particularly on these transportation projects. And so we recommend your approval of these defined amounts.
It's been moved and seconded. This is first reading. Roll call.
Stupedja.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
7-0.
Would the council be willing to go back on and take care of this on second reading as well?
On this particular ordinance, yes.
Move to waive second reading and approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Fanouken, seconded by Alderman Fagan, to waive second reading on this ordinance proposal and approve. Any further discussion? All in favor, or excuse me, roll call, please.
Fagan,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Stupeja,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you.
Would it be out of order to ask if we need, would it be advisable to do waiver of second reading and approval on ordinance 2019-025, which is item number 1? Is that out of order?
No, the council still could waive that if you
Okay,
choose. It's on the agenda.
is there something on that that we should not consider waiving second reading?
No.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved. Move to waive and approve.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we waive second reading and approve ordinance 2019-025 as voted on in first reading. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Stupeja,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. So move. Motion passes. Number 3, ordinance 2019-027, amending Chapter 55, hotels and motels to eliminate hotel and motel tax on properties with 5 or fewer hotel rooms. This is first reading on this ordinance. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Verbic, seconded by Alderman Fagan. City Manager Nicholas, please speak to this item.
Our Community Development Director, Joanne Charlton, has written a very detailed background report on this.
Yes, she did.
It comes down to the fact that the world has changed. We thought we had our hands on the universe of bed and breakfasts, and the internet sprung some new ideas and some enterprising opportunities for people to do their own B&Bs, and at one point I believe we were of the opinion there might be as many as 15 to 20 of these already operating.
Oh, I think
in the
there are
city of DeKalb.
Airbnbs, yes.
We don't have an opportunity. They change with the day, with the weekend, with the season. So it happens that the one legally granted special use has been operating in good fashion, but is paying for this, and nobody else is. And so we were trying to draw what we thought would be a reasonable line. In this case, there's really just one unit, but we thought, well, it could be possible that you could have as many as 5. So we just picked a number, and we recommended that we amend our code, which deals with hotel motel tax, to allow that any entity that is regulated by the code having fewer than 5 rooms would be exempt from the hotel motel tax. So we offer that to you with our recommendation.
Yeah, it certainly levels the playing field for that one property. I'd be interested at some point to see what other communities are doing in this regard. I don't know if anybody here knows or has an idea, but there seem to be a lot of those Airbnbs cropping up, and I'd be interested to see if any other communities are seeing that as a small revenue source.
If I could say something, Mayor.
Yes.
I just booked an Airbnb, and I got charged taxes on it. So something's getting done there to get taxes done. Now, granted, this is a vacation area, but still, somehow they're collecting taxes.
Mayor, we looked at this issue roughly, let's say, 12 to 18 months ago, and we also undertook a study through some of the listservs that the city has of what other communities are doing. We found the responses varied greatly from communities permitting it to taxing it to taking zoning enforcement action to passing Airbnb-specific regulations. I think, as the city manager indicated, based on our review of this and the scope of it at the city at this time, and with the resources it requires to track down individual Airbnbs and process it, we felt that the regulations were appropriate.
Well, I think the fact that we've done it here recently in the past year gives metal to the idea that at this point we may not have to do anything. But I think the ordinance before us certainly makes sense. We do have a motion and a second to approve this on first reading. Alderman Jacobson.
Again, knowing that I've stayed in them, and previously my understanding through the management company that I rented in is once the municipality passes the tax on those requirements, you send that in to the effective operator, VRBO or Airbnb or any of those, and they collect the tax as part of the rental. It wouldn't be on the city. It would be us notifying the listing agent and saying, hey, this is something in our community on our city letterhead. This is official. You must collect tax, or they are violating the law, and they take care of that.
We did pursue that with Airbnb and VRBO as well. They are doing agreements of that nature in larger communities where they have a significant scale or number of properties, but our experience was similar to that of other similarly sized communities, that they're not taking direct action in smaller areas.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Favor.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupija.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes. Thank you. Yes.
Can I make a motion to waive?
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the second.
And approve the ordinance?
And approve the ordinance.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Fagan, seconded by Alderman Verbeek, that we waive second reading and approve this ordinance as discussed in our first reading discussion. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Fanouken.
Yes.
Stupija.
Yes.
Fagan.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. Motion passes. Our final ordinance item of the evening for first reading is 2019-028, ordinance 2019-028, repealing Chapter 68 self-storage tax. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Stupedja, seconded by Alderman Fagan. City Manager Nicholas.
And I might defer to our Assistant City Manager, Ray Munch, who has been talking with me about this and other revenue sources, or what the estimates were of certain proposals that were brought to the council back, I believe, at mid-year in 2018. I wasn't here.
Yes, we discussed this as part and parcel of budget
of another
hearings, did we
package
not?
of possible revenues, and it appears that we've overestimated maybe by half what the impact of this is, and the collection of it is going to be taxing, no pun intended, on our, because in relation to the size of the expected revenue. So I'll defer to Ray on this.
So when this was offered up as a potential revenue source during the budget process last year, admittedly the potential revenue was uncertain at that time. The original revenue projections that were put together were based on a then proposed self-storage facility that was intended to take up some retail space that was no longer in a retail use, so there was some discussion about how to recapture the loss of a retail space in town, and that's where this came from. But essentially, as we move forward, that development has not come to bear. So the revenue estimate that was put forward was high. And again, with the reduced staffing in the finance department and some other issues that have come to light, we feel that it's appropriate to not move forward with this at present.
And the impetus for this is that we would, at this point, need to move forward and provide notice and so forth that we're going to proceed to impose the tax.
So this is repealing a self-storage tax that we had passed.
Correct.
We have a motion on the floor, a second, to repeal this Chapter 68 self-storage tax. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Stupeja,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
7 ayes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Alderman Fagan.
I'd like to make a motion to waive second reading as the ordinance appears.
And approve the
approve the
repeal?
ordinance.
Okay. So we repeal the ordinance. Anybody second that?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been seconded by Alderman Verbic. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Stupeja,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
7 ayes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we've arrived at reports and communications, and I'd like to call first of all on our First Ward Alderman, Dave Jacobson.
I know this room will certainly look a whole lot different come our next meeting, and I want to thank the people that are sitting with us tonight that may not be with us at our next meeting. Again, that the reality of the financial burdens we face force a change in our staffing levels and a change in our direction. I think it's important to say yet again, we thank you for your service, for what you guys have done here. It certainly was not an easy decision, and it certainly was not based on any sort of malice or decision that we weren't getting the highest level of service to you. We wish you good luck. I wish you all good luck, and hope nothing but wonderful things in all of your futures. Thank you for being here, and thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, David. Alderman Fanouken.
Having the opportunity to work with the two individuals that are here this evening, I've appreciated the hard work that you have done, both for the city in general, but when I've come up with a question or pointed something out that I thought needed to be done, thank you very much.
Alderman Stupeja.
Yes, I'm just going to ask our attorney if he'll bear with me, and I'll just give him a little bit more work before I say goodbye and good luck. I would just like a clarification, and this is in reference to the Open Meetings Act, where 3 aldermen can't be together for obvious reasons, because that's a quorum. But many times we're asked to go to something, a meeting, and 3 or 4 of us may just want to go. Now, if we're separated at that meeting, is that still a violation? I mean, we're not sitting together or huddled or anything like that.
Happily,
is that still a violation?
I can address that without taking on an additional research project. So the Open Meetings Act applies where there is a discussion of public business by a majority of a quorum of a public body. So if we break that down, and we'll go backwards, majority of a quorum of the city council in this case would be at least 3 of you, because a quorum of the council would be 5, a majority is 3. So anytime we have 3 or more aldermen together, we're thinking about this. Public business is another important part of it. If you get together and talk about Alderman Finucane's favorite sports team, the Chicago Cubs, it's not an issue at all. If you talk about the city budget or city finances or personnel or anything relating to the business of the city, then it becomes a consideration. With the council, because all business is business of the council, that's a very broad burden. With more narrow groups, if we talk about the Enhancement Commission, for example, if members of the Enhancement Commission want to talk about things that don't in any way relate to the public business of their body, then it's a lesser consideration for them. The last part of that is discussion. And discussion is something that you should view as duplex, two-way communication. So if, for example, the entire council attends the State of the City address and the mayor addresses the council and the council members sit and listen, that's not discussion, that's the mayor talking. Similarly, if individuals, if you see an alderman somewhere and mention to them something and it's two of you talking, even if you're talking about city business, you're not hitting all of the elements because you don't, in that case, have a majority of a quorum of the council. So it is only when all those elements come together, if all members of the council choose to attend a conference and listen, or choose to attend a conference and you see another alderman there and you talk to them individually, those are not OMA violations. It would just be where 3 or more of you are engaging in a contemporaneous discussion back and forth of public business. And it's whether it is by personal communication, by text message, by serial email, by phone call, by Skype, by any means. So it's a long answer to a short question, but I hope that's helpful for you.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. I thank you very much.
Alderman Fagan.
I'd like to mirror the comments that Alderman Jacobson and Finucane brought up on, and I'll say their names, Joe Allen, Charlton, and Tim Oldman. You've been excellent to work with. It's been an honor. When I came here, I didn't know much, and you really did help me a lot. You answered my phone calls at different times of the day and night. I appreciate that. I wish you the best in your future, and you'll be missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Verbeek.
Same goes. Thank you, Joellen and Tim. Much appreciated, and wish you all the best in your future. We're hosting a 6th Ward meeting, our next 6th Ward meeting on Monday, April 1st from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We'll be talking about ongoing projects in the 6th Ward, including the Home 2 Suites project, along with a presentation about backyard chickens. So I hope you can join us.
That's April 1?
April 1st.
April
yes.
1st. Okay.
Police Department from
joke
6
in
to
there,
8.
right?
What's that?
There's no joke in there, buddy.
Yeah. No food, no fooling, right? Yeah.
No
Okay.
fooling.
No fooling.
Yeah, right. Alderman Favor.
Yeah, I just want to echo everyone's comments to Director Holdeman and to Joellen. I really appreciate the service that you've given to the city. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and I do wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I have had the opportunity to sit down individually with the folks who were impacted, including Tim and Joellen, and you guys know what I think of you and what this community thinks of you and your work, and we really appreciate it. So thank you, and Godspeed, believe me. Just a couple of items. This Wednesday noon at Fanatico's, a member of the Annie-Glidden North Task Force, Chad Glover, along with the chairman of AGN, Herb Rubin, is holding the first, I want to say, sort of an informational session on where do we want to go now from now that we have the plan. How do we want to take a look at the top 10 or whatever and start implementing that. I thank Alderman Jacobson and Alderman Finucane for being our liaisons. I'm not asking you guys to be liaisons to that group, obviously, but I know your heart's in it and your heart's in that area, and I appreciate your efforts. So anybody who can make it up there at noon for lunch at Fanatico's, 12 noon on Wednesday. Finally, tomorrow night, DeKalb County Online will be hosting a special candidates night featuring the 6 folks vying for 4 seats on this city council. I encourage folks to attend this event, which will probably be the first of several such forums between now and Election Day in April. I'll be attending an economic development meeting tomorrow night, and I'll not be able to attend, but I have indicated to the candidates, we have one of those here tonight. Well, actually, we have several candidates here tonight. Tony, you're a candidate. I don't know if you need to attend on my behalf, but I've indicated to all the candidates that the city of DeKalb will provide whatever assistance that we can in helping them to become better informed about municipal matters, and in so doing, become better candidates. So that is an offer that I make as mayor of the city of DeKalb, and I would hope that there's consensus here that that's what we want to do, because we will be having some new folks up here in a few months, and we hope that they are good rookies, if you will, by taking part in city government and these forums. So I congratulate DeKalb County Online for organizing this forum, and that's scheduled to begin at 6 o'clock Tuesday night. That's tomorrow night at the Red Roof Inn on West Lincoln Highway. City Clerk Fazekas, anything to report?
Early voting has begun. We have the schedule for early voting, all the locations and hours on the clerk's page at the website. It's the same info that you can get at the county clerk's office, but it should only take you 2 clicks to get there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. City Manager Nicholas.
Thank you, Mayor, and I want to thank the council and the mayor for your expressions of support for Tim and for Joellen. In the past month, they have labored most professionally under difficult circumstances. I've never been prouder to work with such professionals, and I wish them all the best.
Hey, Bill, do you want to report on the FOIA FOIA report? It's just simply that we have filed that now, and that is part of our report. We have no executive session tonight? Is that correct? We have no executive session, okay. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting of the City Council.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Favor, seconded by Alderman Fagan, that we adjourn this regular meeting of the DeKalb City Council. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.